When you're looking for more and there's no place to go, it's a sequels only bonus show. It's not about sequels this time, you know, it's a sequels only bonus show. Doug and his pals, well, they know what to do, talking about movies without a part two. Looking for more and there's no place to go, it's a sequels only bonus show. Talking to stars with Doug Ditsold, it's a sequels only bonus show. Sequels only bonus show.
Hey there, Doug here. Hope you're doing well. Hope you're staying safe. Happy Monday, the last Monday of 2020, thank God. And we're going to make either your drive to work, drive home, or just hanging out on a Monday. Make it go a lot quicker with this week's amazing bonus interview. I still can't believe that when all this started, I was lucky enough to interview so many people. But this one, D.B. Sweeney, actor, writer, director, oh my God. He was in so many things I loved growing up. Being a huge fan of baseball, 8 Men Out. And I talked to Shoeless Joe Jackson. He had some amazing stories from that shoot. His ties to the whole Sheen family, Martin, Charlie, and an interesting one with Emilio, which is pretty cool. And we also talked about The Cutting Edge, Fire in the Sky, Spawn, so much more. I don't want to spoil any of it. So what I want to tell you is check out his short that he put out earlier in the year. He wrote and directed it and starred in it. It's him, Sean Astin. You know Sean Astin. It's called Dum Micks. I'll put the link in the episode notes, but it's also, if you want to, make sure you're not driving, but if you want to just write it down, it's TWODUMMICKS.com. Hilarious. Really cool what he's trying to do with these little shorts, reminding of him watching like Charlie Chaplin growing up, and very cool. But I'm going to shut my yapper because you're going to hear the amazing D.B. Sweeney.
Thanks so much for taking the time. I appreciate it.
Yeah, sure. How's your night going?
It's not too bad. You know, the world's upside down, but at least I'm still here.
Yeah. Yeah, right?
Yeah. So where are you at? You're out in California, right?
No, I'm in Chicago.
Oh, okay. Cool. Yeah, I know you grew up in tri-state area, Long Island, right?
Yeah, Long Island, a little town called Shoreham on the East End.
Oh, nice. I'm in Jersey still. It's like hours from where you grew up, but that's cool. So growing up there, how did you? At what age did you say like, hey, you know what? I want to try acting.
Well, it was I went to college to try and be a baseball player and try and chase down that path of, in life, and got injured. And then I came back to, I was in New Orleans. I came back to New York, and I hadn't really decided, I want to be an actor, but I really didn't know what else I wanted to be. So my sister was going to NYU, and my dad, being a high school guidance counselor, he was like, you got to stay in college. So I figured, well, I'll go to NYU. And, I figured I didn't really want to work very hard. So I thought acting would be the easiest thing. So I kind of threw my hat in that ring, and it turned out to be a good fit. It wasn't easy as I thought, but it was a good fit.
That's cool. What position did you play in baseball?
Play right field.
And what kind of injury did you have? Like diving for a ball, like something like that?
No, I hurt my knee on a motorcycle, and I didn't have great speed to begin with, and now all of a sudden I was even further compromised. So while I was rehabbing my knee, it was like, what are you gonna do next? While you get yourself back to where you need to be, and just kind of fell into the acting thing.
Yeah. So at NYU, you studied like theater, and then started doing plays there.
Yeah. Well, I enrolled in the theater program. I had an audition, and I got in with an audition, which I had never done an audition before. But I read some books about it. And I thought, okay, here's what. So I just dove in and did it. And they put me in there, but it was a fairly competitive program even at that time in the 80s, and they hadn't spent all the money to make it a glossy place like it is now. But there was a lot of good people there, and I couldn't get a part in any of the plays. My whole first year I was there, which was be my sophomore year in college, I couldn't get a part. So I just thought about it over the summer, and I had found this room as part of the NYU buildings that hadn't been rehabbed yet, and it was kind of a crappy built room. And I asked the dean if I could use it with some of the other broken toy actors to do our own plays. And she said, "Yeah, go ahead, go have fun." Figuring that we'd never do it.
Yeah.
And so we started doing plays, and one of the guys was Jordan Lage, Lage, who's now a very respected New York actor, and he's on a lot of different TV shows. He's on Broadway all the time.
Oh, nice.
And he was one of the guys And, so we just started doing plays. It's like, I'll play this part, you play that part, and somebody put the lights up, and, one thing led to another. And, we set up 60 chairs, and usually there'd be 57 empty ones. But one night an agent came in and saw me and, signed me. And so then I started getting some opportunities to be in TV commercials and things and auditions. And I felt like, wow, this is kind of a real thing.
Wow. So, it's funny. I talked to so many different people at different like stages in their careers. Like some people in the game for like 40 years, some people are new. And the people I talk to that obviously make it, you have to make your own luck. Like you can't sit around waiting for, okay, I'll wait till next year and I'll try out for the play. You made it happen, and just so happened that person came in. Wow, that's crazy.
Yeah, it's there was a poster Nike had back, I think it was in the late 80s, early 90s, where it was this person running near a riverside. And, it was kind of a beautiful artistic shot. And it said, just do it, which became the Nike slogan. And I thought, I'm doing it nowadays with YouTube and everything. There's a million videos on how to be the best tennis player, how to be the best baseball player. Here's the perfect workout. Here's the perfect keto diet. And the reality is that all of those programs can probably work if you just do it. And I think that applies to acting. It applies to everything.
Yeah. So you're still a big baseball fan?
I do. I love baseball. Here in Chicago, I think it's the greatest baseball city, between the Cubs on the north side and the White Sox on the south side. And then, all of the Midwestern minor league baseball all around it, a couple hundred miles away. So it's pretty great. And I favor the White Sox because of 8 men out, but I got nothing against the Cubs. I really enjoyed watching them all the last few years with all the success they had.
Yeah. Did you grow up like a Mets or a Yankees fan?
No, you know what? I was from, like I mentioned, the East End of Long Island, and a couple towns over was this player by the name of Carl Yastrzemski, who since he was a Boston Red Sox, so he was one of the first guys I became aware of. And he was my first, favorite player, my all-time favorite player. And so I just, if he had played for the Mets or the Yankees, that's who I would have rooted for.
Yeah, my middle name's Thurman. So after Thurman Munson, my dad was diehard. But
so is your dad from Ohio?
No, it wasn't like that. No, my dad's from Jersey.
Okay, because I know Thurman Munson, I think, was from Ohio.
Yeah, right outside Canton. That's where he. That's where he's from. Yeah, that's cool. So you're in Chicago now. So what are some of the early commercial work that you did?
Well, I did one commercial actually the first job I ever had in front of a camera of any kind was the commercial for the U.S. Army. And I did it, it was on the last moment right before the kickoff of the Super Bowl in 1984, January 1984. And so it was kind of cool. It was the first thing I ever did. And they bought the number one, most expensive, desirable spot at that time. Maybe there's a more desirable spot during the Super Bowl now, but at that time, the last spot before the kickoff was considered the key moment because everybody's watching, poised and waiting. And so they put my commercial on there, and I was with a bunch of buddies of mine just drinking a beer, having a tailgate and watching it. And it was awesome, to just be with your friends and here's this commercial. And it wasn't like a run around, fire guns, ride the tank commercial. It was a kid and his father in a garage, and the kid tells his dad he's joining. It was very emotional, kind of a real like little slice of life from a movie moment. And I just thought it was great. I thought it turned off great. I had no idea that the next week, my little small-time agent got calls from Steven Spielberg's people and all these other big Hollywood hotshots who saw it. And they flew me out to California. I had an audition for Back to the Future, which I didn't get, for the, not the Michael J. Fox part, another part. And, it just, all of a sudden it was like, wow, I was like on the map because of this one commercial. So that later on, I did a commercial for Hallmark, which was not as widely seen or anything, but that commercial I did for the Army it launched me.
Wow, isn't that crazy? Do you remember how many days it took? Did it even take a couple days to shoot?
Yeah, it was one day. I always remember because it was my brother's birthday, and and it was Bruno Kirby. His dad, Bruce Kirby, was my dad, and I got to know Bruce Kirby, and what a great guy. I got to know Bruno later, and so Bruce played my dad, and then he was playing on Broadway the next year with Dustin Hoffman. So I went and saw the play, and I got to meet Dustin Hoffman, and so it was kind of fun to just sort of like be introduced to the business as sort of like somebody who already had a job.
No, that's so cool. So you fly out, you try out for Back to the Future, don't get it, and then I'm sure you have more auditions, but the first thing on your IMDb here is Out of the Darkness, Martin Sheen film.
Yeah, that was that's like a just random TV audition I went to, and I don't remember the exact order of things. Sidney Lumet, the great film director, hired me for the movie called Power. And that was the first movie I did, and I had one line. It was, and it was actually great. He's one of the only guys that ever hired me on the spot. And it was awesome to be hired. I had not one line, I had 3 lines, sorry. No, wait a second. Let me make sure I get this right. I had 3 lines in the Martin Sheen Out of the Darkness thing. I had 1 line in the Sidney Lumet thing. And anyway, so I went and did the Sidney Lumet thing. And then the Martin Sheen thing, I'm on the set in the middle of the night. And I'm going to be a victim of Son of Sam. And so it's just 2 kids making out in a car. And then Son of Sam comes up and he shoots through the windshield. And then there's supposed to be the windshield's supposed to spider web. And that's where they put the name of the show, Out of the Darkness. So it was a very important shot and so they couldn't get the visual effects thing to work properly. So the girl that I was in the scene with, she had never been anything before. And she was really nervous. And I said, well, we should just probably practice, so we're good at our part. So it's a freezing night on the Jersey Palisades, and I'm kissing this beautiful girl, and I'm sure there were a lot of guys outside grumbling at me. And then the funny thing is that when they tried to do the effect of the windshield, it didn't work. So it was like they tried it many different times. They brought in different glass. They did all these things, and then they sent us home. So about 2 weeks later, they bring us back, and they try it again with the visual effect of the glass. And once again, it doesn't work. So we go home, and 2 weeks later, they bring me back again. And so I got paid not only for those 3 days that I worked, but they have this rule in Screen Actors Guild where you can't work one day here, one day there. They have to pay you all the days in between. So I ended up, for having 3 lines and kissing this pretty girl, getting paid for like 6 weeks of acting. So, just for sitting at home.
That's like every teenage boy's dream.
Yeah. I was like, well, I could live with this business.
Yeah. That's awesome, man. And then so you work with Martin Sheen, and then throughout your career, I think at least 2 times you worked with Charlie, right?
Yeah, Charlie and I did No Man's Land and 8 Men Out, and Martin and I did Hear No Evil and Spawn, and then Out of the Darkness.
That's awesome.
So I've got very familiar with the Sheen family.
Yeah, no, that's awesome. So what would you say your first big role would it be in your eyes? Was it No Man's Land?
No, the movie that changed everything for me was Gardens of Stone. Francis Ford Coppola kind of picked me out of, he could have had anybody he wanted in Hollywood, obviously. And by him picking me, it just sort of sent a message to Hollywood. Before the movie was even released, I was getting offered other movies because, it's a kind of a follower business, and you get one big part, and a lot of people will want, if somebody, Quentin Tarantino or whoever the big hotshot director of the moment is, if they hire you, that immediately says to a lot of other people that don't trust their own convictions that they better get a piece of you.
Yeah, it's true.
So, and it worked in my benefit in that case, and I'll be eternally grateful to Francis for picking me.
Wow, that's so cool. Somebody else is looking at you, they're like, no, we want him. And then when you get a call from him, you can't say no.
Yeah, well, I had 3 auditions. I had one audition. Fred Roos, the great cast director from The Godfather and a lot of other movies, he brought me in on another movie, and the director wouldn't hire me. This woman was resistant to hiring me, and Fred took it so personally that she didn't listen to his advice, that he sort of made it his mission to prove her wrong. So when he brought me in to meet Francis, I think he was looking for Francis to vindicate him to this woman. And then I had a callback, and Francis really liked me at the callback. And then by the 3rd time, I'd been auditioning for stuff, and I'd done a few bit parts like the Martin Sheen thing and so forth. But now I realize that, a lot of times they go with the more well-known person. So in my 3rd meeting, I actually spent most of my time trying to persuade Francis not to use me for the main part, but to give me a smaller part just so I could be in the movie.
Oh, wow.
And I guess he thought that was charming. I wasn't trying to be manipulative. I was just trying to survive. But he never considered me for anything else, and he slammed me right into that leading role. So, like I said, a game changer.
Wow, look at that. And then from there, it's just like it took off because you had No Man's Land, really cool movie with Charlie Sheen. And then the next year, 8 Men Out, you get to play Shoeless Joe Jackson, which for a baseball player, that's cool, man.
Yeah, that was really fun, and I had great experiences. I learned to hit left-handed. I spent summer with the Kenosha Twins baseball team, trying to perfect hitting lefty and trying to like live the life of. I feel like in the '80s, like a big league player in 1919 probably had the same amenities that a low A ball player had in the '80s.
Oh yeah,
in terms of training staff and just amenities. So I just wanted to get that experience under my belt, and that was great. And then I went off and did Memphis Belle in London, where we flew around a bunch of B-17s, and I just had a great experience on all those movies, and then it led up to The Cutting Edge, which when that came out, it kind of changed everything again for me, because that was the first time I'd had like a romantic comedy, and it was very popular. So that's when I really first started to get everywhere I went where people would know, oh, that's that guy from that movie.
That's awesome. I'm surprised it took that long. 8 Men Out. When you look at the people, obviously you were in the movie, you're on set for all those days, but like I rewatched it over the weekend. The people that are in that movie, it's unbelievable how great that cast is.
Yeah, John Sayles is another one of those guys, like Coppola or whoever is one of those guys that everybody wants to work with, and that was a really relatively low budget movie. I think it was $6 million back in the day, but to have all those people and to shoot the World Series and do all the things they did, it was really, really a great accomplishment, and we had a ball. All the John Cusack and Charlie and I and Davis right there. Gordon Clapp, so many great guys in that movie, and Michael Rooker. We had so much fun, and it was just a great experience. So at that time I wasn't really looking to like build a long career. I didn't really think they'd let me stick around very long. So I felt like I wanted to do as many different things as I could in a short period of time. So I was really focused on not repeating myself and trying to be different in each movie, which is, I guess it's a good way to approach it. But the more, like Tom Cruise, for example, has had an incredible run being Tom Cruise, and The Rock now is on an incredible run being The Rock. So if you really want to be that above the title type name, it's better not to be too different each time. But I'm happy with the path I chose.
Yeah, and it's good you do that, because then you don't get pigeonholed. Like those are the positives, like The Rock and Tom Cruise. But there's other actors. Sure, if you look back at some of those '80s action movies, maybe 4 or 5 of them hit, and then they just fade out because that's all they can do.
Yeah, it's a great job. If you get a good script and you have a good team, good co-stars and everything, it's a great job. But it can also be a grind. When you're in something that's not really working, it's very difficult, and that's when you really get called upon to show what you can do. I've always felt like it's much harder to be good in a shitty movie than to be excellent in a really good movie.
Yeah, that's true.
When you're in a big budget movie with a lot of top people, you have a lot of protection. But when you're in a smaller movie, maybe you have a director who's only directed 1 or 2 movies, you're definitely a lot more at risk of sucking.
That's true. So let's talk about The Cutting Edge. That movie, I'm going to say it's probably one of the few like hockey rom-coms out there. And I thought it was pretty cool. You played a guy named Doug. Me and my wife watched the movie last week. It's a pretty awesome movie. Terry O'Quinn's in it. He's amazing.
Yeah, I'm not the first guy to observe it, but it all starts with the script, and we had Tony Gilroy. That was his first script ever, and of course he went on to write all the Bourne Identity movies, and Dolores Claiborne and Michael Collins, and he does a lot of uncredited script doctor work in Hollywood, and he's considered the go-to guy really, as far as most people consider him one of the best, if not the best writer in Hollywood. And this was his first movie, so I was very, very lucky to catch that train and benefit from all his brilliant dialogue.
That's cool. So when you got that movie, was it, because at that point, I'm sure you had to audition, but was it something they were seeking you out for?
No, I didn't have to audition for that. They just offered me that one. And there was a period of time there for about 5 years where I didn't have to have any auditions. And that was kind of great. And, I chose the ones I chose, and I'm glad I did. They offered me the Mighty Ducks at the same time, and I decided to do The Cutting Edge. So, Mighty Ducks obviously was a lot more successful, but I like The Cutting Edge. I think it's a really good movie, and I think people, it makes people happy, and people go back and watch it over and over again with their families, and it's not a mean movie. Nothing against the Mighty Ducks, and I'm not talking about it. I shouldn't even brought it up, but I just mean The Cutting Edge makes people feel good.
That's crazy at that time that 2 different studios were like, okay, hockey movies, DB Sweeney. It's either this one or that one. And it's funny the connection that you have with the whole Sheen family.
Yeah, I know, it's funny. And he did a great job in that movie. He made that awesome movie. He was, he's a great guy. And I got to know him on the set of Young Guns, because when I was learning to ride for Lonesome Dove, I went down and hung out through Charlie, and I got to know Kiefer Sutherland, and we all hung out. There was no fun down there. I was riding all day, and then in the bars and restaurants with those guys at night. So we were having a pretty good time.
That's awesome. And then like you said, for that span, Did you ever think of that? Like when you talk to people, maybe when you started or friends or family, and it's like when you started, you did this commercial, it gets seen, and then everything changes. And then you're not even auditioning for a good chunk of years. That's amazing.
Yeah, it was good. You know, I mean, the good news and the bad news is when you're on a roll, in, I guess it's maybe the same in the music business, but in the movie and TV business, people don't have a lot of imagination. They all want the same thing at the same time. So
Yeah.
it's great when you're in that moment. When you're not in that moment, the problem is, it's hard to penetrate those people's awareness. Like, like I don't know who the guy would be right at this moment we're in right now, but I'm sure I can't think of. There's a lot more outlets for creating stories and movie and TV shows. But no, I'm sure there's a list of like 5 guys from the age of 30 to 35, and if you're one of those 5 guys right now, that's great. And if you're not, good luck getting in one of those rooms or one of those movies.
Yeah, it's true. No, it's definitely like that. So yeah, around that time, a big movie that people love, Fire in the Sky.
Yeah, I thought, I really liked that script a lot. And I liked the character. And again, trying to keep with playing different kinds of roles. I just come off of, the cutting edge. And I did a couple of other smaller movies. One of them was called A Day in October in Denmark about World War II and the Danish resistance. Great story. And I did a movie called Heaven is a Playground, a basketball movie. So I was trying to make all different kinds of movies and do as many different things as I could. And then when Fire in the Sky came along, I was like, oh, this is a really, really great script. So I really wanted to be a part of that. Really great story and something I felt like we hadn't seen.
That's cool that you're able to go to. Was there ever a movie that you? I'm sure you filmed overseas before. Did you film that one movie overseas you mentioned, the war movie?
Yeah. Well, we shot Memphis Belle in England, and let's see what else. And I did a movie called Sons, which never came out. It's the only movie I've ever done that never came out. And I really wish it would come out because the guy who played my father is that legendary director Samuel Fuller, who directed The Big Red One and Shot Corridor and Pick Up on South Street and all these. He's like the king of B movie, high-end B movies.
Yeah.
Everybody, even people like, again, to mention Tarantino and Spielberg, a lot of the major, influential directors of our time were influenced by Sam Fuller. So he played my dad in this movie, and William Forsythe is a tremendous actor, played my brother. And we shot that movie in France, and there was a dispute between the director. I don't really know what the dispute was, but anyway, it was produced by a Japanese guy who the movie's finished, and he's got the rights and never released it. So that was in 1990. So we filmed that in France, and it was pretty cool because Sam Fuller fought on D-Day, obviously with the Allies, and he landed there on D-Day. And in this movie, he played a guy who had landed on D-Day and now was coming back as an old man to visit. So that was really just a great experience to have with him. And I don't know, I never saw the movie, but I hope, it's got to be worth seeing. I mean, Jennifer Beals is in it, and Stefan Ron, who was in Babette's Feast. And, it's just great cast. And so Judith Godrèche, she's an actress. She was a very young girl, and now she's had a long career. So it's interesting to me when things, I haven't had, this is the only one, but movies that don't come out, it's like, it just seems like, why not release it? And, maybe 5 people will watch it, and that'll be $15 in your pocket. I don't get why they don't do it. But anyway, that was a great experience. So we did that one in France, Memphis Belle in England, and then Denmark the next year, I guess was 91. So yeah, I made 3 movies in Europe, and I was very much interested in doing that because I wanted to work all around the world instead of just in Los Angeles or Vancouver.
Yeah, it's crazy how that happens, how a movie doesn't come out. There's a whole thing right now over the last few months. I don't know if you ever saw the movie or heard of the movie Grizzly.
No.
It was so when Jaws came out, it was like such a big hit. So the next year, like we were talking about, like some of these movies, they kind of do the same thing at the same time. So they were like, let's do Jaws, but on land. So they did Grizzly, a bear that attacks campers. So they made a sequel to it. Charlie Sheen's in it. It's funny that we're talking about that, but he's in it.
Wait, is that a real? Okay, I didn't know if that was a real movie, but I didn't know if Charlie used to joke about that, and I thought it was something he made up. Yeah. Because his line used to be, "Look, I'm a guy who was I go from being a guy in Grizzly 2 to the cover of Time magazine because of Platoon." So yeah, but I thought it was a joke. I didn't know it was a real movie.
Oh no, and you know what's funny about it too, and I bet. I don't know Charlie Sheen. I don't know George Clooney, and Laura Dern's in it. So Laura Dern and George Clooney are a couple in the first opening scene of the movie. They're like, at a campfire. They get eaten by. I just read about it. There's nothing like no footage out that you can find, but like they're trying to get the movie out right now. I was like, man, that'd be the coolest thing. 38 years later.
That doesn't make any sense. You know, you think you got those three famous people in it. You think somebody would buy the movie and put it out just for the curiosity. Maybe one of them already bought it and is keeping it from coming out.
Or maybe or
Clooney's got the money. I don't think Charlie's got the money anymore, but Clooney could buy that thing and probably keep it in his back pocket if he doesn't like it.
Yeah, I bet you if he had the money, he would have bought Return to the Killer Tomatoes, or the one Tomatoes movie that he was in.
Oh, I didn't see that one either.
Oh, yeah, it's a terrible movie. But yeah, it's like one of the early George Clooney movies. It's funny that he used to say that. From Grizzly to the cover.
Yeah, he used to make. I remember him making that joke. You know, I just thought he's a very funny guy. I haven't seen Charlie in 15 years, but I always was very fond of him. And he was not because of any reason other than that we live in different places and didn't come across each other. But I always enjoyed being around him. He's an incredibly funny guy. I mean, no secret. I mean, with all the movies he made, from Hot Shots to to 2.5 Men. I mean, he wrote a book on that thing. He was so good on that show.
And then it's funny. So when I was looking at like that connection on your IMDb, and I didn't watch 2.5 Men when he left, and nothing against you, but then you were on it afterwards. And when I was checking the episodes, I'm like, oh man, dude, that'd been like a cool reunion. All those years later, you work with him again, but it was when Ashton Kutcher took over.
Yeah, it was. You know, I mean, Charlie got most of the attention when he was on the show, and well deserved. But the writing on that show was unbelievably good, and John Cryer is unbelievably good. So they brought me in sort of like to give John. I mean, John and Ashton, it worked out fine, but I think they felt like with Ashton, you know, he was better with the girls and doing like comedy with the girls, and then John needed somebody to hit the ball with on that one particular season, and he and I just clicked. We had done a play together way back in the day, and
that's cool.
Never stayed in touch or anything, but we had a really good chemistry together, and one episode turned into 11, and that's about as much fun as I've had in my career doing the sitcom with John Cryer, because he's such a supple comedic actor, and having the live audience there, I mean, that was really, really fun.
Is that the first time you worked in front of a live audience?
Well, non-theater, yeah. I mean, it's the only time I ever did a sitcom, but I did about 40 plays, 45 plays by now, I think. And so I'm no stranger to an audience. It's just that sitcom thing is a different kind of, it's a hybrid, and it's really exciting and good when it's working. I can imagine that if you have a bad script and it's a bad situation, that it could be deathly. But I love the idea that we're going to do the show on Friday night, you know, at 6 o'clock to 8:30, and, you know, you stop and start and change stuff.
Yeah.
It's not like but still, you do the whole thing in about 2.5 hours. And I just love that energy that, you know, let's get it right. Let's get it good. Let's surf this wave of the audience. And I really enjoyed the whole process.
That's pretty cool. One thing I do hope, last thing on Charlie Sheen, because it's funny, he like has all these connections. So you're in Chicago now, 2016 World Series. I really wish, like going back in time, man, dude, they should have let him throw out that first pitch for the Indians, man. He's such for a team that hasn't won in so many years, he is like a legend, like a sports legend. He's like Rocky to Philadelphia.
You know what? I forgot about that controversy. I remember hearing about that at the time, and there was a lot of excitement, a lot of energy on the Cubs side. But yeah, I mean, in hindsight, I'm sure the Indians regret it, because they needed something to give them a little bit more of an edge.
Yeah.
But I just seemed like it was meant to be. I was at Game 6 and Game 7 in Cleveland. Thank goodness I was there. And in Game 7, when the Indians came back and tied it, they had all the momentum, and you know, I'm sure you could see it on TV as well. But in the stadium, you just had the feeling that this is going to go the Indians' way. The Cubs had their chance. They blew it by using Aroldis Chapman too much in Game 6.
Yeah.
They took out Hendricks too. It just felt like, you know, I'm not trying to blame Joe Madden. I'm saying there were a lot of decisions that were made and a lot of things that happened that felt like it's not going to go the Cubs' way. And then it started raining. And it was the craziest thing, because you felt like almost like a divine intervention took it away from the Indians.
Yeah.
So I think it would have helped them to have Charlie Sheen there at that moment. To you know, they have, you know, since God's rooting for the Cubs and we need Satan rooting for the Indians, and then maybe they'd have a chance.
Yeah, they would have. I know they always play the music from the movie, like Wild Thing, but dude, just having him come out in the jacket, I'm sure he would have done it up to a T. It's not like he would have just walked out and been Charlie Sheen. I'm sure he would have picked the head the way he had the he's a showman.
He would have rose to the moment. I guess I think they were probably worried because he was so deeply involved in whatever drugs he was doing for that.
Yeah, at that time, yeah.
I mean, it's baseball is very corporate. I mean, they don't want, they're not. You don't see porn stars throwing out the first pitch, or or even like really edgy rock and roll type people. They're pretty buttoned down. So, but I do think they missed a moment. They missed a moment there because who knows if I never know. The Indians could get back there. I mean, I think Terry Francona is one of the most underrated managers in baseball.
Oh, yeah.
I'm a Red Sox fan. I thought he did an unbelievable job with them. And the Indians, the Cubs were way better than the Indians man for man. And Francona kept them right there. So you never know. Who knows if we'll even have a season this year. But, the Indians are probably they're the new Cubs in a way. Well,
no, I know. Yeah, talking about all that. I miss it. Like this time of year is like it hurts that I'm not able to like sit out in the garage and listen to the games. But
it's probably the thing I miss the most. I like going to have a beer with my buddies, or whatever, playing a game of cards or something, or playing golf. But the thing I really miss the most is going to the ballpark. I've really taken to the White Sox even more. I've always been a fan since 8 Men Out.
Yeah.
But this year the White Sox this was their turnaround year, and a lot of us were really looking forward to it. So it's tough, but hopefully we'll get this coronavirus thing put back in its place and get the world going again.
Hey, did they ever have you throw out the first pitch?
Yeah, I did it at a White Sox game against the Cubs. Actually, it was about 10 years ago, maybe.
Oh, sweet.
And maybe I don't remember. It was Mark Burley was on it. It might even be more. It might be like 15 years ago. And I wasn't living here yet, but I came in, and I'm good friends with Kenny Williams, who was the general manager at that time, and now he's the president of the team. And yeah, he's a good friend. I met him back in the 80s and, play golf and hang out, and he's a great guy. Anyway, I don't remember exactly how it came about, but I went to throw out the first pitch. And the night before, a bunch of us went out for dinner, and they were like, well, you're Shoeless Joe Jackson. You're going to throw it out. It was not called, I think it was already called U.S. Cellular Field, but there were people still call it Comiskey. They said, Shoeless Joe coming back to Comiskey, you got to go out there without your shoes on. And I was like, okay. It was kind of like I was dared. So I go out there with no shoes on, just my socks, which was stupid. And it was, I had never been in front of that many people where I'm the focus. I've been introduced before at ball games and stuff. But when you go out there, it's a Cubs White Sox game. There was probably 40,000 people there, and they were really looking at you. And that first pitch thing is a real weird moment because until you've done it, you can't really experience it yet. Because I think you have half the people in the place hoping that you nail it, and half the people hoping that you've completely screw it up. And so I definitely helped those people by taking my shoes off. Like, what are you thinking? So you go up on a mound. You're not used to being on a mound generally anyway. But I had thrown the week before, whatever like that, and I was toying with the idea of throwing a knuckleball, which I don't throw that well, or throwing a slider, which I can really throw. And I thought that would be cool, but they didn't have a catcher. The guy I was throwing it to was Mark Burley, and I thought it wouldn't be nice to make him look bad. So I just thought I'm going to throw it as hard as I can because they told me that they put the radar gun on everybody and they keep an unofficial, gambling about who's going to throw how harder than whatever. And so I figured I want to be the over on the radar gun. So I should have kept my shoes on. Anyway, I threw it pretty good, but it was high. And luckily Mark Burley's a tall guy and he saved me. So, but everybody said, don't bounce it. He said, if you bounce it, they'll boo you right out of the yard. So either hit the mascot or the screen or whatever, but don't bounce it. And I followed the advice a little too well.
That's awesome, man. So back to your career. That was cool, talking about baseball. So you mentioned Spawn before we were talking about like Martin Sheen working with him. That is such a cult movie that I know there's always talk. There's so many movies they always talk about remaking. That's one that I would hope they never do because it's just so perfect. John Leguizamo. Oh my God, that movie's so good.
Yeah, I think one of the great things about that movie, I did the movie because Mark DePay, the director, had never directed a movie, and he was one of the people that worked on the visual effects for Fire in the Sky, and we became friends. And he said, "Hey, would you do this movie?" And I was like, "Yeah." And kind of that's how I've always made my decisions in my life. It's like, who do I want to spend the day with? Because there are long days on a movie set, and you might end up spending 3 months. And so I've always been trying to work with people that I like to work with. So anyway, I did the movie because of Mark. And then I got to know Michael Jai White, who played Spawn.
Oh, yeah.
And I already knew John Leguizamo a little bit. So the thing about Michael Jai White is that he's a world-class fighter. I mean, there's a lot of pretend badasses in Hollywood, and but he's the real thing. And so his athleticism and his ability, to just embody that certain person that can kill you with his hands, It was really, I think it makes it a different kind of thing. I mean, you watch like Spider-Man with like the wimpy guys they put in that role every time they do it. And then you compare it to like Michael Jai White and Spawn. I mean, like Michael Jai White's Spawn could take any one of the Spider-Men over the last 25 years, like with 2 fingers, just pick them up by the neck with 2 fingers and throw them in a dumpster. And, you know, so to me, I like that. It gave it a grittiness and a realness that I really enjoyed.
That's cool. So what are there some people now that you're friends with that you'd love to, or you had, you know, worked with before that you'd love to work with, you know, in the future?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, Ed Harris did me the great honor of, he came and did a small role in the movie I directed, 2 Tickets to Paradise. And I would love to have another chance to work with him. I think he's probably doing the best work of any American actor right now. And then he's getting a little bit older, but if he decided he wanted to do one, Robert Duvall he's the dean of American actors. I think of all actors in the world. I mean, there's nobody better than, you take Lonesome Dove and The Godfather and Great Santini, and, you know, you rack up his list of movies, and there's really nobody like him. But Ed Harris would be a close second. And you know, there's a lot of folks that I've never worked with. I mean, I've worked with a lot of people, obviously doing this for whatever 4th decade now. But you know, there's a lot of talent in the acting ranks. You know, unfortunately, the writing in Hollywood is not, I think, what it used to be, and a lot of people direct movies before they're really ready to direct movies, which is why I think a lot of movies have slipped, you know, and that they could be better if people put in more of an apprenticeship. Like Tony Gilroy, for example, he was an apprentice to William Goldman, the great William Goldman, who wrote Sundance Kid, and so he basically was his apprentice and assistant for several years, 5 or 6 or 7 years. And he put the time in, he learned what he was doing, he learned the craft, and then he went off, and then he's Tony Gilroy. But I think now, you know, as soon as you write your name on a script, somebody buys it, and then some agent represents you, and then, you know, people are put into a situation where it's like, okay, this guy's a great writer, let's let him direct the movie. That's usually a bad idea, because writing and directing are such different things. And so I feel like the business got taken over by agents, and now, you know, people that aren't really, that really should have somebody rewriting them or not being rewritten, people that should have other people direct their scripts or directing themselves. So I think those things have affected the quality of movies.
You think it's also like people trying to churn it out, and also like there's so many avenues to get movies made now?
Well, I think that because there's so few good scripts, really good scripts, that when somebody writes a good script, they all want to be like Francis Coppola or Quentin Tarantino or John Sayles or whoever, you know, they want to be the auteur, and they want to be the one to direct it. But directing is such a different skill than writing, and very few people are Orson Welles or these other names that I've mentioned. Most people are good at one or the other. And when you write a script, and I know this from having directed my own script, and I only directed it because the 2 guys that I asked to direct it turned it down, and I didn't have anybody that I thought would wreck it less than me. So I wasn't doing it to try and prove anything. But it was just the best way to do it. I saved the salary, and, you know, I produced the movie, so that was important. But I feel like you write the script, you have one point of view about the story and the characters, and then if somebody else can come in, somebody who's talented can come in and have another point of view on it, then in that case, I think 1 + 1 becomes 3. And I just think that the whole writer-director thing is overused, and it's not usually the right idea.
That makes sense. So after directing that, I know it was some time ago, have you thought about doing it again, or is that just the one time?
No, I love doing it. I'm never going to do it where I play a leading role and I'm directing myself, because that's too difficult. And again, like the same way that a writer and a director is a different mindset, a director and an actor is a very different mindset. And there's people that have had great success with that, from Charlie Chaplin to, you know, Woody Allen and Spike Lee. And, you know, I'm sort of not thinking of others, but, you know, Tyler Perry, I guess, maybe. I don't really watch his movies, but I guess he does it a lot. And so the thing that all those 4 people have in common is that they play a character they've played before, or at least a very close variation of a character they played before. So Charlie Chaplin's playing the Little Tramp, or, you know, a variation of Little Tramp. Spike Lee's playing Mookie, or a variation of Mookie. Woody Allen's playing Woody Allen. So they've already got that character kind of figured out. Yeah. And then they can direct the movie. But if for me, I don't really do that. I don't really do like a character that I recreate. I try to play a new character each time. So in finding the character, that's a full-time job. And then if you're also going to try and find the story and direct it, and the tone of the movie and it's just a very different mindset. So I would love to direct again where I'm not in the movie, or where I have a small part in the movie. Yeah,
it's got to be like you mentioned, a lot of work. You're trying to just got to try to juggle too much. Like you're trying to, act, and you got to try to, direct other people all at the same time. So.
Yeah, it's like an army. I mean, making a movie is really, there's a lot of analogies with a military structure, and you have anywhere from many dozen people to several hundred people. And if you're an army and you have a guy who's a general, but the general doesn't also make the soup, and a movie set, if you have a general who's also got to go off and be the actor, it's asking too much of any one person, unless you're an extraordinary person like Orson Welles.
Yeah. So you were in a lot of series over the years. Was there like a particular series? Because it looks like some of them maybe you were just on as like a guest star for a while, but like, shows like Strange Luck, C-16 FBI, Harsh Realm. Is there any of those that you thought you like didn't get a fair shake that should have got like more time?
Well, I thought all three of those shows that you just mentioned, I thought they should have all run. And they, for a while, I did 5 TV pilots in my career, and 4 of them got picked up, which is an amazing percentage. But they all got put in crappy time slots, and unfortunately, they just didn't get out of the first year. So Harsh Realm especially was a really cruel one, because that was a great show. It's very similar to The Matrix, but it's more in a military context, like a military training game that has virtual reality, and characters go into the game and then they become vulnerable. Like their body is in a coma in the real world, but in the virtual world, if they get killed in the virtual world, they die in the real world too. So it's kind of cool. It was a real neat spin, but it had that kind of Matrixy energy to it, and it was really, really good. And unfortunately, it was produced by Chris Carter, who was the guy behind the X-Files, which is such a great show.
Yeah.
And he was negotiating with Fox for the rights to, like, after a TV show gets into its 5th or 6th year, usually the rights all revert back to whoever created the show, the studio or the person behind it. So Chris was behind the show, so he wanted to get paid a boatload of money for having the #1 show on Fox.
Yeah.
And Rupert Murdoch didn't want to pay what Chris wanted to get. So as part of the negotiation, Rupert Murdoch just canceled Harsh Realm to show how serious he was about holding Chris's feet to the fire in the negotiation. So, that was a really good show. We did 9 episodes, and it never really got its day in the sun. One of the first, Michelle McLaren was one of our directors. That was the first thing she ever directed.
Oh, wow.
Of course, she's gone on to, Better Call Saul and Game of Thrones and all the great stuff that she's done, and Breaking Bad. And she's a terrific director. So had we gone into a second year, she would have been one of our regular directors. That might have been her pathway there, but it's always disappointing. And Strange Luck was great to work with Francis Fisher and so many great people on that show. And that's another show that I thought should have been given more of a chance. We had very good ratings, but we were on Friday night at 8:00 before the X-Files, and Friday night at 8:00 is a death spot. And so we got a 5th. Well, these numbers don't mean anything anymore because of the way the audience has become fractured. But in 1995, we were doing like a 15 share on Friday night at 8:00, which was unbelievable, but that wasn't good enough for Fox. So I was a little disappointed that both of those shows got canceled. And C-16 is a show from Mike Robin, who went off to do Nip Tuck. He's got All Rise on TV now, but anyway, he's done about 6 shows. The Closer, and everything he's done since C-16 has been a hit. So if he had been given a little more time to tinker with the show, I think that would have been a hit as well. So you take your shot and try and make the best of it. And I had great experiences on all those shows. So I just try to find the best part that's available to me at any given time and do the best I can with it.
That's awesome, man. So one thing that's cool whenever I look up people's IMDb is and they get to work with the same people again. And you just said good things about him before, William Forsythe, in the movie Stiletto, which has a ton of great people in it.
Yeah, Stiletto was my friend Nick Vallelonga, who just won the Oscar for Green Book as a writer and producer, with my other friend Brian Curry, who wrote 2 Tickets to Paradise with me. That was just a great thing to watch them, win that whole thing. But years ago, Stiletto was one of Nick's just trying to figure out how to break through, and he wanted to do an action thriller. And he discovered Stana Katic, who was who went off to do Castle, and he found her, and that was her first part. And he said to me, "Hey, will you come down and do a day or two? And I'm gonna put you in some scenes with Tom Berenger and Billy Forsythe." And I was like, "Yeah, let's do it." And his dad, Tony Lip, was there, and that was a great experience. I mean, the movie is okay. It's it's not the best thing ever, but another great experience. Working with pals and trying to make something a little different than everybody else has done.
Yeah, I interviewed one of the Nazi bikers, R.A. Mihailov, and he had a lot of fun on that shoot.
Yeah, I know that name. Yeah, he's famous for being a swordsman, right? In movies, like
he was Leatherface in one of the Texas Chainsaw Massacre movies.
Oh, maybe I'm mistaken him for somebody else. I thought he was one of the guys that was in Conan with Schwarzenegger.
Oh no.
Maybe I got that wrong. It was somebody who was known for being good with a sword, which I thought, what a great thing to be known for being good at.
Yeah, that'd be pretty good. Good skill to have, something like that. So now, so what we do is like with this, the reason I started like the show is growing up, I was always fascinated with sequels. So there's so many sequels that are even out now. Like there's a Roadhouse 2, which I don't know if you ever knew that was a thing, but there's a lot of ones like that. So you were in some good sequels, and one that I wanted to ask you about was, I know Taken 2. I'm sure that part had to be much bigger because Bernie in the first movie had a bigger role, and then in the second movie you took over that role.
Yeah, I don't know why. I can't remember the dude who played it in the first movie. I can't remember
his name.
Anyway, I think he wanted more money and they wouldn't pay him, and then I said, yeah, I'll do it. I love that first movie. And, so I just jumped in there because I thought it'd be a fun thing to do. And I really liked Liam Neeson. And then I don't remember what happened when they did another sequel, and either I wasn't available. I don't remember what was going on, but I ended up not doing the next one. But I had a great time with Liam Neeson, and we had there was definitely more there that they didn't use. But, it's not about, it's a Liam Neeson movie. People want to see him kick ass. And so I'm sure I know we had some funny stuff. We had a barbecue scene, and it was much bigger and much longer. And I had some funny lines in there that I was disappointed they didn't use. But, there's kind of ad libs, and we were all just hanging out, having a really good time and building this character's background. So that was, it was a good experience. And I loved it. That's another guy I'd love to work with, Liam Neeson. I think he's an underrated actor.
I think all of his movies, obviously he was great before he was doing the action movies, but dude, he can do like The Commuter. Just put him in any situation, I'll watch it because he's so badass.
Yeah. Schindler's List.
Yeah, I know. That's what I mean. Like he has that part of his career, which is great.
Yeah.
And he has his
you're right.
action
And Taken became another. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And it goes back to, what I said earlier is that with Michael Jai White, like it helps in action movies. Liam Neeson is a big guy, and he was a boxer when he started out. He's a physical guy. He's not some guy that came out of Juilliard or being a stand-up comedian or something and then became an actor. He's a real physical guy, and that comes through in ways that people that are not that thing usually can't convey.
No, that's true. And then another sequel that you had it come out, either was it the same year? Oh yeah, the same year. So Atlas Shrugged 2. Yeah,
I mean, it's the same kind of thing. I had some buddies call me up and say, hey, listen, I'd read the Ayn Rand book and I'm a fan of her stuff. And so they said, how'd you like to play John Galt? And I was like, yeah, sure. When, where? And that was literally the extent of it. And I came down for, 4 or 5 hours, and I've never even seen the movie, but it was a fun day. There was some people that I liked, and it was just one of those things. They were saying, we're going to make a John Galt, we're going to make a movie, a third one, and will you agree to do that? And I was like, yeah, let's do it. And it never happened, but I was game.
Yeah, what's funny, when you look at the cast, I didn't watch it yet, but there's Michael Gross, Diedrich Baker, you're in it, and then the main girl, I can't think of her name right now, but she's in a bunch of
Samantha Massis.
Yeah, she was in a bunch of stuff, and I'm like, but it's funny, you mentioned before, like 8 Man Out. I know you were saying, I think it was $6 million, but this movie's budget was only $10 million. And for 2012, that sounds very light.
Well, I think that money doesn't really make the movies. Sometimes if you have things that are expensive, you need money. But a lot of times a good script is the best money that you can spend. And, I've been on some really big movies and some smaller budget movies. And, if you have the story and the characters, you could usually figure it out with whatever money you have.
No, that's true. Yeah, I'm just going by the trailer I watched because there was like a lot of effects in it. So I was wondering if maybe that's why it didn't wasn't.
I think that's what he spent it all. Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't know, but Samantha Mathis is great. She was in Harsh Realm with me, and I love her. And so I'm getting to the point now where a lot of times I'll come back and it'll be my second or third lap with somebody when I see them on a set, which is, it's great to have the history.
That is cool to be able to catch up with someone you haven't seen in years. You're like, hey, how you been? And because you're in Chicago now. I'm sure there's some people that are in Chicago, but it's not like you're in LA running into those people. But
yeah. I mean, there's a big community here of especially theater actors, and there's people on these Chicago Fire PD shows and stuff. So I'll see people that come through as guest stars sometimes. But I like to go to work. I like to live my life, in the normal world, and then kind of go to work. So I don't really bump into that many people because I don't really operate in those circles.
Yeah. Are you still doing plays right now?
I haven't done one in a while. Since I moved here to Chicago, I've been very busy with, I did, as soon as I moved here, I got on 2.5 Men. So I was commuting back and forth doing that. And then I've been working on my own stuff, the most important of which is two Dum Micks, which is now, it's kind of blowing up here on, we put it out on Facebook at facebook.com/2dumbmicks with no B.
Oh, sweet.
And we're past 300,000 views, and it's I don't know when how far we are away from the date, but hopefully, maybe I should say we passed 1 million views. I don't know where it's going to be by the time this airs, but it's definitely getting viral. And Sean Astin's another guy that we did Memphis Belle together. Loved it. And Two Dum Micks is just meant to be like a short comedy and a little bite. Watch it on your phone, and it's a little comedy, a little harmless, little chuckle to get you through your day.
That's cool. Yeah, I'll share it before this episode comes out because I want to check it out. But so is there any bigger plans with that?
We want to do, we're hoping, Sean Astin and I are hoping to do many of these either 6 or 7 minutes subsequent episodes where it's not in sequence. It's just like another slice of life, like Laurel and Hardy, not slice of life, but like Laurel and Hardy or Three Stooges, like it's the next episode in their madcap life. And so we're hoping to do that, but we don't know at this point. It's exceeded our expectations in every way. I mean, it's won over 50 film festival awards, and now it's only been on the internet for a little over 10 days, and
cool.
More than 300,000 people have watched it. So that's a real thing.
Yeah, no, that's really cool. He's big in my life because growing up, I love Goonies, and then Rudy is like one of my favorite football movies. It's pretty cool.
Hey, there's no better guy than Sean Astin. I mean, he's the Lord of the Rings to me. That whole thing does not work without him in it.
Yeah. So
and everything he's been in has been great. He's great in Stranger Things. He's a tremendous actor, and he's the biggest hearted guy, and he's great. I love working with him, and that's one of the reasons I wrote Two Dum Micks was because I hadn't worked with him since Memphis Belle, and I bump into him from time to time, and I'd be like, man, I work with Sean. Let's do something. So I just tried to make it happen. Oh,
that's cool. So you wrote it with him in mind?
Yeah. I wrote it to have something for us to do together.
Man, DB, this has been awesome. Thank you so much for taking the time. I think I know the answer to this, but was there anything else? Obviously, you had the baseball injury. That's something you wanted to do. But was there any fallback? Was there anything else that you wanted to do besides, theater and acting? Obviously, it blew up in that commercial.
I love cooking, and cooking's always been my passion. I started cooking in restaurants when I was 13 years old.
Oh, wow.
Which sounds improbable. It's a whole longer story that I'll tell you on another day. But I started cooking, and so over the next 10 years, I cooked in 20 different restaurants because as soon as I learned how to do everything they made in a restaurant, I moved on to another restaurant. So it was kind of like trained in the streets. And I love cooking, and I'm planning on doing something with that. I don't know exactly what yet, but stay tuned. I'm gonna bring my passion for food out in another form very soon.
Like a cooking show or like a movie?
Not sure. It's not gonna be a movie. It's gonna be definitely some like a lifestyle thing, like cool. A show that involves food and making food and eating food.
You still cook? You still have that same passion?
Oh, I cook 4 nights a week in my house here, and so I love it. And it's everybody's got their own taste. My son and my daughter are teenagers, and they like what they like, and my wife likes what she likes. So. It's almost like a little restaurant where I got to make 4 different things.
Hey man, that's good. If you can do that, my daughter's only 16 months, but I feel like that when she's gonna have to start eating like she's eating what we're eating, but when it's gonna have to be like those fancy type of things, she's gonna want more. Then that's a fear of mine. But
well, I'd say from the ages of 6 to 12. Have her eat like vegetarian food and healthy food and everything like this. Because then when she starts to rebel as a teenager, she'll rebel back towards stuff that you actually want to eat.
Yeah, right. Well, awesome, man. Hey, TV, thank you so much for taking the time. This has been a blast, and I really appreciate it.
Thank you. Thanks for pushing out Two Dum Micks for me.
Oh, no, don't worry about it, man. No, that'd be cool. And hopefully baseball's back sooner than we think.
Yeah, that'd be great. Well, all the best. Great talking to you.
Man, DB was so cool. Just the stories, like I said then in the interview and now going back and listening to it, man, talk about a job. He gets to pay to just make out with a girl. And the shot didn't work, but he was getting paid for it and, yeah, having a good time. And don't forget, again, check out Dum Micks. And also the chances that this Thursday, I'm going to be interviewing the producer that saved Grizzly 2, because back in March, that's the first time I, heard of this whole thing with Grizzly 2 with Charlie Sheen, George Clooney, Laura Dern. And then I just happen to be putting out this interview right now, and I'm talking to her on Thursday. But yeah, don't forget, check out Dum Micks. I'll put all of DB's links, his social media, his website, everything, so you can keep tabs on him. And don't forget to review, rate, share our podcast, follow us on all social media at Sequels Only, and check out our website, sequelsonly.com. Good night.